Desira, upon seeing Eugene waiting for them at the center of the labyrinth, assumed that he had accepted the proposal to team up against the boss. However, he barely remembered the conversation. His real motive was to yield the spot to them. With a smirk, he stated that he could defeat the boss alone, but that would be rather sad, considering how much they had struggled to get there. Cyan grew angry, demanding that he repeat himself. Eugene continued, explaining that the boss wouldn't attack them as long as they kept a certain distance. The plan was for each of them to fight the boss alone, in the order they arrived after him. Desira grew uneasy since she wasn't expecting to fight alone, but Eugene reassured her, saying that she could give up if she wanted, especially since she looked injured after her ordeal in the labyrinth. She angrily retorted that she wouldn't back down while grabbing a handkerchief. Tying it around her forehead to cover her wound, she approached the boss, spear raised, ready to fight. Cyan turned to Eugene and asked if he was going to fight, to which he replied that he would go after they were done. Cyan scoffed, mocking him and wondering if Eugene would even get a turn, since he would be the one to defeat the boss. Eugene decided to make a bet, declaring that if Cyan defeated the boss, he would call him elder brother for the rest of his life. Cyan's eyes lit up with excitement, telling Eugene he had better not forget those words. Cyan and Ciel sat down, observing the monster boss they would soon have to face. Desira finally stepped into the Minotaur's range, causing it to awaken, revealing its true, massive size. Desira felt a surge of fear, realizing she would have to take down that monstrous being alone. But she quickly steeled herself. There was no time to hesitate. She lunged at the beast and it immediately reacted, slamming the floor with one massive hand. Desira leaped into the air to evade the impact, quickly recovering before launching another attack. Finally, her spear struck its target. However, to her dismay, the Minotaur's skin was so tough that the attack failed to leave a single wound. The Minotaur took advantage of her momentary shock, its other hand swinging from behind and seizing her. Unable to move, she closed her eyes, certain that this was the end. But instead of finishing her off, the Minotaur simply hurled her back toward the entrance of the central room. Ciel turned to Eugene and asked what kind of monster would spare its prey instead of finishing the job. Eugene replied that it only happened because it wasn't a real monster. The victor had already been decided the moment the Minotaur grabbed her. Cyan, now brimming with excitement, gripped his sword and prepared for his turn. With a smirk, he glanced at Eugene and declared that he would now show them the difference between the power of the main bloodline and that of the collateral lines. He began charging his mana, a blue aura enveloping him as he focused. Finally, the energy imbued his sword, giving it a bluish glow. Desira's eyes widened in astonishment. "That's sword ki," she exclaimed, adding that such a technique required at least 10 years of mana training to achieve. Watching him, she felt a wave of frustration, realizing just how vast the gap was between them and the main bloodline. Even Eugene was taken aback, not expecting someone so young to wield sword ki. Cyan knew he could only maintain the technique for a short time, but it would be more than enough to defeat the boss. Suddenly, the mana in his sword dissipated, leaving him in stunned silence. At that moment, Eugene recalled Galate's words. This ritual was meant to test everyone's abilities without distinguishing between main and collateral lines. It now made sense. This central room must have been designed to prevent mana usage, likely due to Liberian's magic. Everything clicked. If mana couldn't be used, then everyone was forced to fight under equal conditions. Cyan, still frustrated, demanded to know why his sword key had disappeared, despite having plenty of mana left. Eugene raised his voice, telling him to step back if he thought he would lose. There was no point in getting injured out of sheer stubbornness. Ashamed, Cyan glanced at Eugene, who smirked as he stood beside Ciel, who looked eager to see her brother's match. Cyan's anger flared. How dare Eugene assume that he couldn't fight just because he couldn't use sword key? In an instant, he lunged at the monster, ready for his turn. The Minotaur, now fully awake, prepared for its second battle. The monster doesn't hesitate and launches its hand towards Cyan. He swiftly dodges the impact and seizes the opportunity to make a cut on the creature's arm. He keeps moving, landing slashes all over the monster's limbs. However, exhaustion sets in, and he realizes that minor wounds won't be enough to bring down the Minotaur. Determined to change his approach, he rushes toward the beast's legs. But just as he is about to strike, the monster abruptly lowers its knee, blocking Cyan's attack with surprising speed. Frustration and disbelief flash across his face. He hadn't expected such agility. In an instant, the Minotaur snatches Cyan and hurls him towards the exit. Though he manages to recover midair, he ends up outside the monster's range. Eugene informs him that his turn is over. He then turns to Ciel, telling her she's up next. She refuses, explaining that she won't be able to use sword key in the battle. Eugene is momentarily taken aback, realizing that Ciel is more perceptive than her older brother. Without hesitation, Eugene readies himself, picking up his sword and shield. As he approaches the monster, Seal asks if he truly believes he can win. Without shifting his focus from the beast, he declares that losing is not an option. Upon entering the creature's range, it unleashes a powerful punch, but Eugene effortlessly evades it. Seizing the opening, he leaps onto the monster's arm, aiming for its head. However, the beast swiftly counters with its other hand. Eugene dodges again, maneuvering skillfully until he reaches the Minotaur's head. The monster throws another punch, but Eugene jumps off at the last moment, causing the creature to strike itself. Letting out a pained roar, it momentarily exposes its neck, an opportunity Eugene does not waste. With calculated precision, he begins slashing at the vulnerable spot. The other three children watch in stunned silence. Desira quickly realizes that Eugene is targeting the carotid artery. With a final, decisive strike, Eugene pierces the monster's neck, ending its life. The massive corpse collapses, shaking the ground beneath them. Eugene nonchalantly cleans his blade, treating the battle as if it were just another training session. With a smirk, he asks if everyone witnessed him defeating the boss. Cyan, trying to justify his failure, blames his inability to use sword ki. Yet, deep down, he isn't sure he could have achieved victory with such speed and elegance, even if he had been able to wield it. An unfamiliar emotion stirs within him. His excitement refuses to fade. His chest swells with admiration for Eugene, though he does not yet recognize the feeling. Suddenly, Eugene's weapons and the Minotaur's remains begin to dissolve into magical particles, signaling the end of the ceremony. In the observation tent, Gilite is thrilled to witness a child from the collateral line defeat a Minotaur with such mastery. Loberian agrees, noting that battling a Minotaur alone is an immense challenge. Hence, he had emphasized teamwork. His initial plan was to observe the children combining their strengths to take down the boss through various tactics. Curious, Loberian asks what kind of child Eugene is. How did he overcome every trap and defeat the final foe with such ease? Gilite explains that Eugene has dedicated himself solely to training since arriving at the mansion. He even had people investigate Eugene's hometown, where his relentless perseverance was evident. Continuing, Gilite remarks that Eugene was born to fight, and discovering such a talent through this ceremony is extraordinary. Loberian, his expression clouded with concern, asks if Gilite is not troubled by this revelation. After all, Eugene has already surpassed the three children of the main line, and once he learns to wield mana, his strength will only grow. Unfazed, Gilite sees this as an opportunity to further elevate the Lionheart name. Still uneasy, Loberian presses on. What if Eugene decides to claim the position of the Lionheart family's next leader? Gilite responds with stoic resolve. The title belongs to the strongest among them. If his children cannot defend their birthright, then they are unfit to lead. Loberian advises him to consider adopting Eugene as his son. A collateral line child defeating the direct line in the blood continuation ceremony could spark disrespect among the other branches, leading to greater complications. Gilite acknowledges Loberian's advice, admitting that the suggestion is quite tempting. For now, however, their priority is to congratulate the children who are approaching as the maze vanishes. The kids are now assembled in front of Gilite and Loberian. Gilite, wearing a disappointed expression, directs his gaze at Iode. The boy couldn't even reach the center of the maze due to being sidetracked by the magic and creatures. The blood continuation ceremony is meant to be a trial where they prove themselves, not an excuse to be consumed by curiosity. On the other hand, Ciel and Cyan managed to surpass the traps and monsters without much difficulty. They were unable to defeat the boss, but with further training they will be able to overcome their lack of experience. Gilite acknowledges their efforts, stating that he observed their performance and that they did an excellent job. He then calls Eugene and declares that he was the most outstanding among the 9 children. He continues, praising Eugene's techniques, especially his ease in defeating the troll. This remark sparks Gargus's curiosity as he struggles to understand how Eugene managed such a feat with his seemingly frail body. Loberian admits that he expected them to spend 2 or 3 days wandering in the maze, but had clearly underestimated them. Internally, he reflects that, despite being children, they are still descendants of the Great Vermouth. Gilate instructs them to return and rest, as he plans to hold a banquet. However, he confesses that he hadn't prepared it beforehand, not expecting them to emerge so quickly. Thus, the banquet will take place the following day, and for now he tells Loberian to escort the children back. As they are leaving, Gilite suddenly calls Eugene and asks him to accompany him. Ciel is taken aback and questions whether her father is giving Eugene his present at that moment. Gilite confirms, saying there is no reason to postpone it. Ciel looks disappointed. She has repeatedly asked her father to let her see the treasure chamber, yet he has never allowed it. While walking through the forest, Gilite comments on Eugene's proficiency with various weapons. He mentions his exceptional performance with a sword and shield against the monsters and his adept use of the spear against Desera. Eugene is surprised that he knew about his fight with Desera, but it is to be expected, considering he is the head of the family. Gilite explains that while the sword is the family symbol, Vermouth himself was skilled with all kinds of weapons, which is why he was called the God of War. He adds that, aside from Vermouth, only one other person had mastered every weapon, Hamel, who was second only to Vermouth. He then states that he actually preferred Hamel over Vermouth. Eugene is surprised and asks why. Gilite responds that he admired Hamel's human qualities more than Vermouth's godlike presence. Hamel recognized his inferiority compared to Vermouth, yet instead of surrendering to despair, he trained relentlessly, pushing beyond his limits. And in the end, he sacrificed his life for his companions. Eugene smiles, saying that he also liked Hamel. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.